Imagine standing on the edge of a battlefield, dense forest behind you, the roar of tribal warriors in front of you, and one man standing tall in his red cloak, calculating every move like a master chess player. That man is Julius Caesar. And this isn't just another battle, it's the start of a war that will change Europe forever. This is the story of how one Roman general took on the world, fractured and fiercely independent Gallic tribes, and won. But it wasn't just brute force that brought Caesar victory, it was strategy, politics, betrayal, and propaganda. This is the untold story behind one of the most dramatic military campaigns in ancient history, the Gallic Wars. By the year 58 BC, the Roman Republic was powerful but unstable. The Senate was divided, corruption was rampant, and in the middle of all this chaos stood a man with ambition as big as Rome itself, Gaius Julius Caesar. He had just been elected consul, the highest political position in Rome. But Caesar wanted more than political office. He wanted glory, he wanted power, and he knew exactly where to get it: Gaul. Gaul was not a single country, it was a region that covered most of modern-day France, Belgium, parts of Switzerland, and northern Italy. It was home to dozens of tribes, each with its own chiefs, warriors, and rivalries. To the Romans, these people were uncivilized, barbarians. But to Caesar, they were an opportunity. It all began with a migration. The Helvetii, a tribe from modern Switzerland, decided to leave their mountainous homeland and move westward into central Gaul. They were around 368,000 people, including women and children. But wherever they went, they caused destruction, burning villages, looting farms. The Roman Senate was worried. If Caesar didn't act, Gaul could spiral into chaos. And Caesar, he saw this as the perfect excuse. He quickly raised 6 legions, around 30,000 troops, and marched to stop the Helvetii. In June 58 BC, near the river Saône, Caesar launched a surprise attack as the Helvetii were crossing. The Romans smashed one part of the column, cutting it in half. Days later, he met the main Helvetii force at the Battle of Bibracte. Despite being outnumbered, Caesar's legions held their ground. His strategy? Let the enemy charge uphill, then strike with discipline and armor. The Helvetii were defeated and forced to return home. Caesar had won his first major victory, and it made headlines back in Rome. Just months later, Caesar faced another threat, this time from across the Rhine River. A Germanic warlord named Ariovistus had crossed into Gaul with tens of thousands of warriors. He had allied with some Gallic tribes, but his power was growing fast, and he started demanding hostages. The Gallic tribes were scared and turned to Caesar for help. Caesar declared Ariovistus an enemy of Rome and marched east. But the battle was far from easy. The Germans fought with wild fury, using long spears and charging in waves. But Caesar's troops were better trained and more disciplined. In the Battle of Vosges, Caesar outmaneuvered Ariovistus using tactical formations and cavalry. The Germans were crushed, and Ariovistus fled across the Rhine, never to return. This victory didn't just secure Gaul, it pushed the Roman frontier to the edge of barbarian territory. Over the next 2 years, Caesar continued his campaign, not just with swords, but with strategy. He knew Gaul was divided, the tribes were always fighting each other, and Caesar took advantage. He played one tribe against another, offering Roman support or threatening punishment. He also made alliances with tribes like the Aedui and Remi, and punished rebels like the Belgae in the north and the Veneti in the west. In one remarkable naval campaign, Caesar even built ships to fight the seafaring Veneti, using hooks to destroy their sails and leave them stranded. The tribe was defeated, their leaders executed. In every province, Caesar left behind forts, garrisons, and roads. He wasn't just conquering, he was reorganizing Gaul under Roman control. While Caesar fought in Gaul, he also fought another battle, for public opinion. Each year he sent back reports of his victories to Rome. These reports were called Commentarii de Bello Gallico, the commentaries on the Gallic War. Written in third person, they made Caesar look like a calm, rational, heroic leader, always fighting for the good of Rome. These writings were brilliant propaganda. They won him praise from the people, fear from his rivals, and support from the Senate. Caesar was no longer just a general, he was becoming a legend. But his fame would come at a price. The Gallic tribes had had enough. In 52 BC, a charismatic young chieftain named Vercingetorix united the tribes like never before. He was brave, intelligent, and ruthless. His goal? Total resistance. Vercingetorix launched a guerrilla war. He burned Roman supply lines, poisoned wells, and destroyed crops to starve Caesar's army. Caesar responded fast, burning villages and using brutal tactics. It became a war of attrition. The climax came at the Siege of Alesia. Vercingetorix and 80,000 warriors took shelter in a hilltop fortress. Caesar didn't attack head-on. Instead, he surrounded the hill with a massive wall, 11 miles long. Then, fearing a rescue, he built a second wall facing outward, 14 miles long, to trap any reinforcements. It was a double siege, one of the most famous in military history. For weeks, the Gauls tried to break out. Reinforcements arrived and attacked from the outside, but Caesar held firm, using his reserves wisely and keeping morale high. In the end, the Gauls were defeated. Vercingetorix surrendered, dramatically throwing down his arms at Caesar's feet. It was the end of the Great Gallic Rebellion. With Vercingetorix captured, the Gallic resistance collapsed. Over the next year, Caesar mopped up the remaining opposition. By 50 BC, all of Gaul was under Roman control, but the cost was heavy. Historians estimate that over 1 million Gauls died or were enslaved. Entire tribes were wiped out. Roman culture, law, and language began to replace local traditions. Caesar had turned a fractured region into a Roman province, and he had made himself the most powerful man in the Republic. But Caesar's success in Gaul created enemies in Rome. Many senators feared he was becoming too powerful. His old ally, Pompey the Great, now turned against him. The Senate ordered Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome alone. Caesar refused. In 49 BC, he crossed the Rubicon River, a direct act of war against the Senate. The Gallic Wars were over, but a Roman civil war was just beginning. So what did the Gallic Wars really achieve? For Caesar, they brought unmatched military glory and launched his path to dictatorship. For Rome, they brought new wealth, land, and influence in the West. For Gaul, it was the end of independence, but also the beginning of Romanization. Cities like Lugdunum, modern Lyon, became Roman towns. Roads and aqueducts were built. Latin slowly replaced Celtic dialects. Today, the Gallic Wars are remembered as one of the greatest military campaigns in ancient history and a masterclass in leadership, strategy, and ambition. In just 8 years, one man changed the fate of an entire continent, but the sword that built an empire would soon tear a republic apart. The Gallic Wars were more than battles, they were a turning point. And in the echo of every march, every siege, and every desperate cry from the battlefield, you can still hear the voice of Caesar, writing history with blood and ambition. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of Rome's most iconic campaigns, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more history brought to life right here on Times Battlefield.